We all got daddy issues. Hello, my friends. So, a bit of a change, a new setup. I'm still trying to figure out lighting and all that, so don't judge me too harshly, but I think it's okay for now. 2 weeks ago, we discussed mommy issues, and today we go on to the other side and we go to daddy issues. Now, this again was loosely based on an idea from our dear friend Mr. Freud, and it is the father complex. It's a good question. What is the father complex? You know what? I'm just gonna put up a slide that basically quickly describes what the father complex was according to Freud. But yeah, it's based on that, alright? And funny enough, it's based on men. So daddy issues, which are usually thought about as being a very female thing and used to put down women, is actually originating from something that affects men. Like I said in the mommy issues video, what these issues boil down to is basically attachment issues. So it really affects both genders, with the difference only being whether it's your mom or dad that you had a strained or unhealthy relationship with. Because like mommy issues, daddy issues can come from, the typical absent father or distant father, but it can also come from an unhealthy relationship with your father, such as being spoiled by him, maybe favored by him from all your siblings, just given really special treatment, being daddy's little girl or whatever people say in terms for women at least. So it's not just negative relationships with your father figure or father that can cause this. Of course, there's also abuse, whether that's emotional, physical, sexual, that can lead to daddy issues. And this is all because children do need a dependable adult in their life to form an attachment with, so that they're able to form healthy relationships and attachments in their adulthood. And so if they don't have a very good relationship with a parent, that's going to lead them to form an insecure attachment style, such as anxious or an avoidant attachment style in their adulthood. And that is basically what daddy issues and mommy issues are. Like I said, daddy issues occur with women and men. They just might present themselves a little differently, especially when we are thinking more of how daddy issues can contribute to sexuality or sexual identity. We will get into that in a while, but let's just start off with the general how it looks like in your relationships. That would be more in romantic relationships, but it can also apply to platonic. Number one, like we said, it leads to an insecure attachment style. This usually would look like mistrust, uncertainty when it comes to relationships, and the fear of abandonment. You will notice that there are a lot of overlaps with the manifestations of mommy issues, but basically it just comes from a different cause. So if you had a father that is not always there, or maybe they were unpredictable, they were abusive, then maybe they're very unpredictable with their moods or how they treated you, and so you can be very anxious about things, about your relationships, whether they're gonna last. Maybe you're always fearing that things are gonna go bad or come to an end, because that is what you experienced growing up, this sort of uncertainty. With that comes jealousy and being territorial, because again, if you grew up with this very inconsistent attachment or experience with your dad, then you might expect that of your romantic partner or even your friends, and you might always be suspecting that they're going to cheat on you, that they're going to find someone else, that they're going to leave you, and that leads to jealousy and being very possessive because you're scared to lose what you have. And this, of course, is all because of insecurity and feeling like you're not enough. So that's another way it can show up in your relationships, never feeling like you're good enough, and as a result, you need a constant reassurance, constant affection, approval, validation from the relationships that you have, that you're good enough to feel secure, or at least as close as you can be to secure in that relationship. And specifically when it comes to dating, it would be a tendency to date older men. This is an obvious one. Could be a way for you to get the love you never received or the approval you never received from your father. If they're older and they're more financially stable, then even if you had like a good relationship with your dad, but where it's too good that it's kind of unhealthy. Maybe you're looking for a financially stable partner who can provide for you and take care of you and spoil you like your dad did, and that is usually an older man who has his life together, maybe. And then with dating, there also might be a fear of being alone, so constantly jumping from one relationship to the other, never being able to just be single. And the other thing is you're likely to end up in disappointing relationships. Now that can either be because you grew up with this sort of disappointing, unpredictable, toxic relationship with your father, and so you believe that this is the norm and this is how relationships should look like, and so that's the kind of relationships that you keep going for. Or it's an attempt to recreate, in a way, your relationship with your father, but do it right this time, and again, get the love that you never received from your actual father. Yeah. And generally, we know that relationships, as much as we hate to admit it or to face it, we go for partners who resemble one of our parents or both of our parents in some ways, whether it's personality or mannerisms or looks or whatever it is, or the dynamic between you and your partner would resemble the one that you had with one of your parents. Very normal. So if you had an unhealthy relationship, you're usually going to go for these kind of disappointing, possibly toxic relationships. Now, okay, so the part where it can differ between men and women about how it presents itself. So in the media and generally what people know about daddy issues, they're usually associated with women, and usually it's used as a way to explain usually more like sexual tendencies. And while that is a bit, number one, that's incorrect in the sense of only referring to women as having daddy issues, there's also an issue there because some professionals would disagree with the term daddy issues because the way that it is mentioned in everyday conversations tends to minimize women's needs in relationships and maybe even to shame them for their sexuality, their sexual desires, and could be as well seen as dehumanizing women's needs and reducing them to daddy issues when maybe they're very reasonable expectations for the woman to have in a relationship. Someone might dismiss her need for affection as daddy issues when it's just normal to expect affection in a relationship that you're in. So there's some issue with that, but that being said, there is some truth to it in some cases, and we'll talk about this in both men and women and how this can affect sexuality or how sexuality is expressed. And so basically in women, it has been seen that an absent father figure or an unhealthy relationship with the father has this correlation with early puberty and increased sexual activity or sexual desire. And then for men, due to having an absent father, a man might feel insecure with his masculinity because he was not able to really have that father figure to help him form that identity. And so because of that, they might feel very unwilling to be in relationships in the first place and not want to get into that, which might, now that I'm thinking about it, might explain commitment issues. But if not avoiding relationships, then they might find that they have to compensate and be overly masculine and aggressive and macho. I guess this basically is toxic masculinity, which we know is not the best thing and can lead to sexism or misogynistic traits in a person. But aside from that, it's that having an absent father or having daddy issues has been correlated with a higher tendency to be a perpetrator in sexual violence. So that's how it can affect men. Obviously, this does not mean that every guy suffering from daddy issues is going to be a predator. It's just that it can lead to it, or it could be a cause for it, and same for women. And plus, the sexual side of it isn't the whole thing. I think the most important thing is realizing how you're forming attachments. Like I say, I feel like we all have attachment issues of some sort. Parenting, I question whether there's any sort of perfect parenting, which again is another video that I have planned, but I feel like we all have some sort of issue that stems from our bond with our parents. If you have identified with any of these traits or in the previous video, there's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's not a lost cause, and you shouldn't avoid relationships at all cost. It's good to just be aware of what happened, to reflect on it, and to see if it really impacts your life and how you form relationships, and whether you're able to really, strongly connect with people and form those meaningful relationships. And if you have difficulty, then, you seek help or try to work on it. And the upcoming video is actually going to be about once you've identified that, hey, I think I have these issues, how to work on it and how to move on from there so that you're able to have healthier relationships, because it is possible. That being said, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to keep up with the future content, and maybe do the little bell post notification, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye. ASMR.